Guliani. Today is Sunday, August 1st, 2010, and today I would like to talk to you about Israel. This isn't the first video I've made trying to bring information to you about Israel, but the other one was too long and got rejected by YouTube. So I'm going to try again. This time I'm going to approach it a little differently. I want to talk about Israeli false flag operations, Israeli acts of terrorism, and why I say the things I do about Israel. I do not believe that the nation of Israel, the government of Israel, is a friend to the United States. I do believe and think that the people of Israel have been manipulated and brainwashed, just like the people in the United States. And I think that they have been so sucked into their brainwashing, these people in Israel, that many of them actually just are so sucked down into it, they probably will never be able to be sucked out. But I do want to get into this really quick because bandwidth's expensive and I've already exceeded my maximum for this month. I'm going to be paying a shitload of money to Verizon, but whatever. I just want to talk a little bit about the history of Israeli false flag ops. I want to show you, and I have to use my notes for this today because there's so many. And of course, it's not an all-inclusive list, but it gives you a pretty good idea. So let's just start back, way back in the beginning. According to the Bible, it was Jews who were responsible for falsely accusing Jesus, goaded by their political and religious leadership. And these people were deceived about Jesus' true mission. They called for his crucifixion when all he ever did was try to talk to them about truth and help them. Okay? They didn't even bother to crucify him themselves because it was their Sabbath. They got the Romans to do it. So that's, I think, the first instance that you see in our history where they tried to get somebody else to do the killing for them. Okay? In the Bible, Jesus pulled no punches when he called these people vipers, murderers, children of the devil. In today's culturally Marxist, politically correct, no Israeli criticism society, Jesus would be considered an anti-Semite, despite the fact that Jesus himself was a Jew. Okay? He was a Jew taught and raised by the Essene cult, which they're very interesting. If you look them up, you'll see why Jesus thought and believed a lot differently than the majority of the Jews of his time. Okay, we're going to move right along now. It was Jews who got Britain to agree to give them Palestine in exchange for getting the U.S. into World War I. It was Jews who caused the pogroms of their own people in Russia around the 1890s to turn the world against the regime of the Tsar and caused millions of Jews to flee to the U.S. for political gain. Under the orders of Jacob Schiff in New York and the Rothschilds, they massacred hundreds of fellow Jews to have Russians blamed for the act. Thousands of Jews fled to the United States, and this served as a setup for the bloody overthrow of the Tsar's regime by the Bolsheviks. Okay? Going ahead now, World War II was also engineered by the Jews. The leadership of the Jews made an alliance with Hitler, causing thousands of German Jews to be killed while others fled en masse to Israel. They forced the U.S. president, I don't know how much they forced him to do it, but they got the U.S. president at the time, Roosevelt, to get into World War II by the embargo of Japanese oil. This brought on the attack at Pearl Harbor, and Roosevelt went along with this script. He knew well ahead of time about this impending Japanese attack at Pearl Harbor, and of course it killed thousands of Americans. Roosevelt was no hero. Okay? Then here we have Israelis. These are my notes, by the way, so I have to try to read them. I wrote them really fast. Israelis engaged in terrorist actions and caused the deaths of many Jewish Iraqis during the 1950s. Arab Iraqis were to be blamed, and they were blamed. The purpose was to get Jews to migrate to Israel from Iraq. All but 6,000 of the 125,000 Jews in Iraq fled to Israel because of this. A few years after World War II, the Zionist plan to establish the nation of Israel was fully realized. British troops unwittingly sacrificed their lives in order to steal Palestine away from Arab control and allow the Jews of Europe to migrate there. Ironically, the British were ultimately chased out of Palestine by Zionist terrorists. The most notorious of the Zionist terror groups at the time was led by none other than Menachem Begin, who later went on to become Israel's prime minister and winner of the Nobel Peace Prize. So you see, it isn't just morons like Obama that get a prize for, undeservedly. Begin admitted that his terror group committed this terrorist action at the King David Hotel in Jerusalem on July 22nd, 1946. He said these acts were necessary, these terrorist actions were necessary for the establishment of a Jewish state. It's necessary to murder masses of people to establish the Jewish state. That's cool with you, right? Okay, I'm going to go to number 7 now. In 1956, as reported by the Times of London, during one of Israel's perpetual wars with its neighbors, the Israeli Mossad tried to trick the U.S., or tried to get the U.S., I should say, into siding with Israel against Egypt by blowing up a U.S. facility in Cairo and blaming the Egyptians for it. The plot was wrecked when the operatives were caught and confessed, creating a huge scandal, and this is very well documented. It is known as the Lavon Affair, named after the Israeli defense minister at that time. You can look all of this stuff up on Google. Have at it. Number 8, Israel got the U.S. to bomb Libya after the Mossad planted a radio transmitter in Tripoli, which sent out fake orders to terrorists, and which could be easily intercepted by the United States. These were: the fake orders caused Libya to be blamed for a German disco bombing that, of course, Libya didn't do. Reagan used it as evidence to bomb Libya, killing 30 innocent people, including Gaddafi's baby daughter. This one is very near and dear to my heart. June 8th, 1967. It was during the midst of the Six-Day War, and the IDF attacked the USS Liberty ship. That was our Navy ship. It was a radio ship. It was floating serenely at 5 knots an hour in international waters, and they were attacked for an hour and a half in what can only be described as a vicious attack, using unmarked fighter jets and torpedoes, and the intent was to sink the ship and kill all men aboard. Well, they did kill 34 American soldiers, Navy men, and they wounded the other 171, and it's only through the sheer courage of the surviving Liberty crewmen that this story has ever gotten out. Our president at the time, Lyndon B. Johnson, refused to send help and, in fact, recalled the Sixth Fleet, which was on its way to go rescue the Liberty. As it turned out, the ship had to be towed into Malta, and the men were intimidated and threatened into silence by their leadership within the military, and Israel has still not been held accountable for this at all. It's solely through the Liberty crewmen that this story has gotten out and circulated around through people like myself. Okay, October 10th, 2001. Now look at the date of that, October 10th, 2001. It was Israelis armed with 9mm pistols, grenades, explosives, detonators, and bullets that were caught in Mexico trying to blow up the Mexican Congress 1 month after 9/11. They were found with not Israeli passports, Pakistani passports. Okay, purpose? Blame these Muslim terrorists so conveniently right after 9/11. Okay? Israel has been responsible for more acts of terror, murder, and sabotage of American citizens than the Muslims ever have been in history. I want you to know that. And let's not forget Rachel Corrie, a young American missionary in Palestine who was bulldozed by an Israeli defense soldier for trying to save a Palestinian home from being demolished. He not only ran over her once, he ran over her twice. He ran over her and then backed up and ran over her again when she was already on the ground. There has still been no justice or accountability for this. And it's a fucking disgrace, is what it is. Okay? Let's go on to the recent flotilla attack by Israeli forces. How about what they've been doing in Lebanon? And we must not forget 9/11. Israel played a central role in 9/11. Central role in 9/11. And you can look, all this stuff up. I just want to ask a question. Why is it okay to commit genocide against one group, but not okay to commit genocide against another group? Israel is not our friend. We reward Israel's bad behavior every year with more and more free aid and assistance. It is a welfare state. It is a nation that cannot get along with its neighbors. The Palestinians happen to be there first. Before these European Israeli Jews that are there now. And I don't understand why we keep, I mean, I do understand it, but it's a rhetorical thing. You know, why do we keep rewarding this bad behavior when they are not our ally? They are not our ally whatsoever. Why aren't we sanctioning them, attacking them, freezing their funds? Why aren't we chopping them off at the knees? Also, let's add to that Israel has refused to sign the nuclear non-proliferation treaty. They refused to sign it. So why is it okay for Israel to have an arsenal of nukes and other nations around the world cannot? I mean, they have a proven track record in history of death, destruction, false flag operations. And if you recall, after 9/11, it was 5 dancing Israelis posing as 5 Arabs that were arrested. So they do have quite an extensive history of false flag ops that, of course, the mainstream media refuses to cover, and they refuse to cover it because they are controlled by largely Jewish interests. And this is what you've got in the United States, a lapdog prison press. And that's why it's up to the independent media. People such as myself, I don't get a press pass filtered through the Congress. I just speak my mind and write what I want to write and say what I choose to say. And I don't bow to the cultural Marxist thought police. So there you have it. And of course, it's not an all-inclusive list, but I'm so inspired today to get this information out to you. I'm like totally maxing out my allotment of 5 gigs for the month, but it's so worth it. It's so worth the money. So anyway, chew on that for a little while. And the next time anybody wants to defend Israel, the government of Israel, to me, you better come at me with some serious facts to refute it, because their history is too well documented, and it really needs to be shared and disseminated more widely among the American people, because I think that too many people are clueless and oblivious to what the truth really is.